Commissioner Gandy,
Here.
Commissioner Butcher,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Here.
Commissioner Campos,
Here.
and Mayor Trujillo.
Here. Invocation and pledge will be led by Commissioner Campos.
Would you join me in prayer, please? Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you, Lord, for allowing us to gather here another day. We want to thank you, Lord, for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us already. Thank you for allowing us to share another Thanksgiving with our friends, our family, our loved ones. We ask that you be with those who weren't so blessed, Lord, and we ask that you also take care of the people who are sick, who are suffering from a debilitating disease. Wave your healing hand over them, Lord, and their families as well. We just want to thank you, Lord, and love you, and to ask that you continue to bless us, Lord, with your presence in Jesus Christ's name we pray.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion in consideration of minutes of November 12, 2018.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to Commissioner and staff reports. White?
Mayor and Commissioners, been gone the last couple of meetings, been out on my deer hunts with my kids and family, so just a quick report. I know Ramirez and Sons is still working on Love Street down there. The last meeting I was unable to attend because I was gone for kind of a walkthrough, but they are finalizing the curb and gutter, and after talking to Ramirez and Sons earlier, they plan on in the next 2 weeks, week and a half to 2 weeks to pour the asphalt to kind of finish up that road and open it back up. Other than that, I'll be open for any comments.
Board members got any comments?
Or comments, questions, sorry, comments.
I only have one White.
Yes,
Can you ask the, I think it's, I don't know if it's, yeah, I think it's a federal highway, wouldn't it be one going to Denver City? If they can cut that.
32.
Mexico
Yeah,
DOT. Yes,
the
I
weeds
do.
are about 6 feet high.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and at least up to the country club, at least that far up.
I
Poor
have
visibility, pulling onto traffic.
been in contact with Greg Evans with this section, and I will give him a call and remind him.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Gary?
Your Mayor and Commissioner, I have nothing new to report, sir.
Anybody have a comment?
Actually, I did.
If I may, yes.
Yes, Mayor. Question for you, Gary. I remember a while back we talked about reports from municipal court regarding the amounts that were received, payments that were made, and so forth. That's directed by statute. Any update on that? Are we able to access those reports or have them available to us?
I need to speak more with our municipal judge. We have been provided information on their expenditures. We haven't compiled the report for you, though.
Okay. All right. I appreciate whatever you can do in the future. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Jillian?
Nothing to report, sir.
Anna?
Nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Oh, me? Wow. Well, I'd just like to commend whoever, maybe the people that put our line right here, that's nice. When you can park a bunch of people at one time, saves a lot of space for a lot of people. We commend them. Thank you for it. That's it. Hope y'all had a good Thanksgiving. It was great.
Nothing. Commissioner Bernard? I have nothing.
Just a couple of things. James, was the county responsible for putting up the lights at the county courthouse area? That's beautiful.
Yes, sir, they are.
That was fantastic. I saw that the other night. So, also, I think we talked about it before, James, railroad crossing on Avenue K. I know that there was some discussion regarding that. Would you care to update us?
Yes, sir. It's a joint project that the railroad informed us this is how they fix those crossings, is that they pay 50%, we pay 50%. We have issued our purchase order to the contractor for our half about 3 or 4 weeks ago. The railroad actually contacted the contractor and wanted it insured and bonded for about a $4,000 project. They sent that paperwork in 3 weeks ago. They have not submitted their purchase order yet. I know Wyatt's going to follow up again with the railroad tomorrow to find out what is the delay, but once that purchase order is issued, we'll actually be able to get a start date.
Very good. And also regarding Avenue K, I received a complaint from a citizen eastbound on Avenue K approaching Commercial. It's pretty ruddy there. If you get a chance, maybe have somebody look at it, James. That's pretty rough terrain, I believe, going into that intersection. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all I have this week.
Mr. Gann?
I do not.
Chief Dick?
Nothing to report, sir.
Fire Chief?
I actually have something to report this time. We recently, we recently had our ISO inspection back in September. They come back and do that every 4 to 5 years, and so we were up this last year, and I'm happy to report that we've maintained our ISO 4 rating. So
good.
We're still the same.
Congratulations. James?
Nothing to report, sir.
Patrick?
Nothing to report, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving forward to public comment. Anybody have anything they'd like to say or share?
Hello, Leslie with the Chamber of Commerce, and Mara, if anyone was wondering what this was. So we partnered up this holiday season. The Lovington Chamber of Commerce and Lovington Main Street will collaborate with local media to put together a cooperative marketing package to help promote our member businesses. This is called Trixie the Elf, and it is a play on the traditional elf on the shelf to support shopping local throughout the holidays. So what we're going to do is Trixie the Elf will be visiting local businesses through the entire month of December through the 23rd. We're gonna post where she's at, a clue. If you go to that business, you are going to take a picture with her. You're gonna, it's gonna be a social media campaign, so you're gonna tag the Chamber or Main Street or the business, and then the business is either gonna give you, if it's a restaurant, 10% off or some free chips and salsa or some kind of fun thing. If it's a retail store, they're gonna give you 20% off or a prize package or some other things we heard today that are going to be fantastic. We're also going to be visiting other local businesses besides retail and restaurant, and they're going to be providing prize packages. So watch for her. If you see her, if you see it on media, please stop by and support these local businesses in helping us help them get the word out to shop local this holiday season. So we're really happy. We've been visiting a lot of businesses and they are enjoying it. So we ask for the support in that. So that's coming up. Also, the Electric Light Parade is Monday, next Monday. And I do want to thank Chief Lizardo and Chief Rodriguez for their support in the parade, in providing manpower for us to have a great parade again this year. That'll be this Monday, the 3rd at 7 o'clock. So we're looking forward to that too. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, moving on to non-action items. James?
Mayor and Commissioners, one of the items that our Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on over the past couple of months after our discussion that we had with Commission is a nuisance building ordinance. So at our last City Commission, or actually at our last Planning and Zoning meeting, I believe it was November 14th, they have compiled a final draft of the proposed ordinance, which is attached in your commission packet. But just kind of an overview, what this would do, this would affect businesses that are located along Avenue D and Main Street, where it would basically begin at 17th and Avenue D and go all the way to Commercial and D. Along Main Street, it would go from Avenue R or Brian Urlacher all the way up to where Love Street intersects with Main Street. Within this corridor, of course, that's all commercial buildings, and this is to address just buildings that are usually vacant. Some may be occupied, however, they are just very unsightly in appearance. And one of the things that our zoning code lacks is if your building does not look good, there is nothing that in our code that actually says that you can't do this. So several communities in New Mexico as well as across the United States have adopted some certain standards that are found within this ordinance. So one, it does need to be safe and attractive, and you find this in the 17-50040. It needs to be safe and attractive. Of course, 10% of the exterior, that you're only allowed 10% exterior deterioration, so peeling paint, boards that are just warped and discolored, or siding that's warped and discolored. Only 10% of the exterior surface. Item 3 actually establishes examples of what needs to be removed, such as weeds, trash, boxes, just junk on the general outside exterior. It does need to be graffiti free, which if citizens, we always need to remind folks that if they do get tagged with graffiti, they can contact the city. They actually need to come down to City Hall, and we will do graffiti removal free of charge. However, they do just need to sign a waiver. So that way, not only does it work for commercial buildings, but it would work for residential buildings as well. But graffiti free, in the event that there is a mural, one of the projects, especially in the downtown area that Main Street's been working on, is murals just to beautify the area. Those would be allowed, but those would need to be approved. Also, you need to have some type of landscaping care. Window and door requirements, of course, found in 6 and 7. Essentially, you need to maintain those windows and doors. The temporary means to secure them can only remain in place for 30 days, and then it needs to be replaced. The whole sole intent of this is really to make sure that our downtown area, as well as, I have lost my notes. Oh, here we go. Our downtown area looks attractive to people driving through town. It's also meant to address that individuals are your vacant landlords or people who simply just don't care about the appearance of their buildings. We can hold them accountable either through abatement and posting those notices. There's also penalties that can be assessed. If they're cited for violations of the chapter, they have to go to court. But this is just another tool that we can potentially use to help beautify, not just necessarily beautify, but hopefully also bring these buildings up to a certain standard to where individuals seeking to relocate their businesses along our commercial or retail district, the buildings are a little bit more habitable and don't appear to have that much work that needs to be done in order to start a business. So if we, as of tonight, this is just a discussion item. If the commission has had the opportunity to review this ordinance that we did put out at the next city commission meeting, if there's any changes that you guys would like tonight, what we would do is we would take this back to planning and zoning again. To run it through that process, there will be an expense because it is a change in zoning. We will need to mail copies of the proposed changes to each of these individual owners' property located in the affected areas. But we just want to make sure that any changes that you would like to see are incorporated into this. If not, if you do like this, we'll place this on the agenda for our December 10th meeting for approval to go ahead and start the advertisement process. I would stand for any questions you may have.
What's the, Mr. Mayor, what's the penalty for something like this?
It would be a fine of up to $500. That would be determined by the municipal court.
James, can you go back to the map one more time?
Sir.
Appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, you got Brian Urlacher and you also got Avenue. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's one block off either side, is that what you're saying? Or just a face?
pretty much the way it's described in the ordinance is, for instance, along Avenue D, it would be the south side of Avenue C would be the northern boundary, and then the southern boundary would be the north side of Avenue E. Of course, this particular area right along in here is actually outside the city limits, but there is just two residences there. The rest of it has been brought into the city limits.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to action items. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, resolutions 2018-116, letter of support for electric vehicle charging station.
Second.
Have a motion, second, James.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, Lee County Electric has approached us. There is some grant funding available within the state of New Mexico. This is actually part of a settlement back back in 2009. Volkswagen made some changes to their vehicles that violated emission standards. This was actually almost a $3 billion settlement, of which the state of New Mexico will receive $18 million of it. With this, the intent essentially is to facilitate the replacement of older diesel motors to clean up the environment and the emissions. However, 15% of the funding that's being provided to the state of New Mexico is obligated towards providing light-duty zero-emission vehicle supply equipment. What is that? Electric vehicles. So part of this program is to get charging stations within the city. Lee County Electric did bring this to me, and as I told them, we would need to discuss this as a commission. But the proposed location actually would be in the Chamber of Commerce parking lot on this northwest corner inside. That way you're not worried about on-street parking. It would be out of the way, but we would definitely have signage. It would be one station that could actually have the capacity to charge 2 vehicles. The goal is, right now, the green circles, it may be hard to read on the slide, but those green circles indicate the current electric vehicle charging stations. They're about 75 miles apart. So if you look, it's in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, within that particular area. I know I've actually saw one down there across from the convention center in Albuquerque. What they're wanting to do is, Lee County Electric is part of a rural co-op association, and what the rural co-ops want to do is place one charging station in each one of those communities that they serve, to where almost every 75 miles in the state of New Mexico, you could actually reach an electric charging vehicle station. So what does this mean for us? Essentially, this particular project would entail us to actually own and operate and maintain this particular charging station. The grant would pay for the estimated $88,000 that it costs to actually purchase the equipment and install it. After that, we would be responsible for maintenance of it on an annual basis. They estimate it's about $2,000. And then, of course, we would supply or pay for the electricity that gets supplied to it. This isn't free electricity, though. They actually have credit card machines on these to where you charge 25 cents a minute. This is a particular type of charging station that does the rapid charge, which I believe would be about a 30-minute charge time. But the individual would essentially pay 25 cents a minute. That money would come back to the city to help us recoup our costs. So this is not a definite grant project. They're just requesting that we provide them a letter of support and a commitment that if it is funded, that we would participate in this project. Yes, sir.
Would it have electrical current like these 115 plug-ins?
No, sir. No, sir. This is a lot more juice.
Like 220 or better?
Yes, sir. And these plugs are actually, if I recall, there's 3 different types of vehicle charging systems out there. This would handle 2 of them. This would not work on a Tesla unless you had the customer provided an adapter to hook up to it. But no, you would only be able to use this for an electric vehicle to charge it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, sir.
James, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that the consumer would pay the city, is that correct?
Correct, sir. It would be done through a credit card transaction.
So would there be a profit made by the city from what the electric company charges us? And if so, are there any issues regarding that?
No, honestly, sir, I don't believe we would actually make a profit off of this. We would be lucky to break even. I only know of one electric vehicle in town.
I was going to ask you, that's my next question.
If you're not aware, there are one or two stations actually located at Norley Hospital. Back where the old ER was on the north, it'd be at the northwest corner of the facility, they actually installed an electric vehicle charging station. However, I only know of one electric vehicle.
All right, very good, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do we have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to consider resolution 2018-117, approval of special use permit and encroachment at 1426 North 9th Street, Lovington, New Mexico.
Have a motion and a second.
Good evening, Crystal Ball, Planning and Zoning. Had a request from 1426 North 9th to get water to the property. And when I looked at the property, I realized there's just two accessory buildings. There's no home, and this is located in a residential zone. So my problem then was to make the owner either come into conformance, and he really doesn't want to live here. He just wants to operate his business. The building's been used as storage buildings for many, many years. So I told him he needed to get a special use permit from you guys in order to keep that use. These are the two buildings. Sits across from the Catholic Church on 9th Street. This is a residential zone. The north-facing building, which is the one with the yellow dashed line going through it, it is encroaching about 3 foot into the alleyway. The building has been there. The last Google Earth picture of it was prior to 1996, and then there's no Google imagery before that, but that building was there at that time. So it's been there for a very long time. The other structure was built in between 2009 and 2012. I have no record of permits back from then, so.
And you say it does have water there now?
No, that's
Or
what he
does not?
wanted to get, was water for his employees to have a restroom. He uses it as a shipping place. He gets oil field equipment in and takes it out to clients, is my understanding of the business. There's not big rigs there. It's not 18-wheelers, nothing like that. Everything is used just by a regular standard 1-ton truck.
But today we're just asking to allow them to have encroachment on the water line, is that, or
No,
property, right?
Today, we're asking for a special use permit to allow them to continue to use these buildings as a business without having to change the zoning, because we don't want to spot zone and things like that. It's unnecessary and it makes it hard to keep up with. The thing about a special use permit is once the ownership changes, it is null and void. So then the next owner would either have to do something different with the property or come and get another special use for whatever they intend to use it for.
Well, how often does he have to renew that special permit?
It's as for as long as he
It's
owns
gonna
the
be
property.
forever. All right, well,
Yeah, so if he deeds it to anyone else, it would be voided at that time.
Would it be commercial or residential?
It's a residential zone, but with the special use permit, we're allowing him to use that property as a commercial business.
If he decides to expand that building or make a bigger.
That's
building.
not something that's, no, the only thing he could expand is by putting a restroom in there for his
Okay, so he can.
employees. That's the only expansion.
And he understood that. He understood.
Crystal, just two things.
Mhm.
Have we had any issues regarding the buildings or the business itself? And Is it your recommendation to approve this resolution?
Yeah, we've had no complaints about that area or that, and as far as I could tell, there was not anything. Chief, did you ever have any complaints on that business?
Matter of fact, we didn't even know it was a business.
Yeah. I sent the letters out to all the residents in the area, and I did not get any phone calls back from anyone on it.
And your recommendation?
I recommend approving it just due to the fact that if we don't, these buildings are going to sit there vacant and empty, and then we will have code violations with weeds and vacant building and rodents, and it causes all kinds of troubles when you have vacant buildings that aren't being used.
Thank you.
But my question would be is how many more special use permits all through town are we gonna get? Because once you open up this can of worms, then everybody who's got a building somewhere is gonna try to get a special use permit to run something out of the back lot, back this, back that. Yeah, the buildings were put up illegally, who knows, doesn't really matter. It's time gone by, but, I mean, how many more places are we gonna give special permits to?
I can't say that. I don't know how many that would be. There is restrictions on special use and what they can be used for. And one of them is just to, if it can be approved by the commission for a use. And that's what we're not changing the zoning of his lot, we're just changing the use of his lot.
And he doesn't live here locally?
No. There is a representative from the company here, if you would like her. Would you have any questions for her?
Just ask the question.
Yeah, you could come up.
Yeah, we would like to.
Hi, I'm Kaylee with Pinnacle Chokes and Rentals.
What was the name of it again?
Pinnacle Chokes and Rentals?
Okay. All right. How many employees?
Just me.
Just one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So basically the facility is just for us to go rebuild the chokes or the valves. It's just a piece of equipment that's ran on the oil rigs. And then we rebuild it in there with small electric impacts, so it's very quiet and normally it's during business hours, or pick up or drop off equipment, that's it. So it's just to have like a restroom and a place to wash our hands.
And you are, in the understanding you cannot expand or anything like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It would be unnecessary. If we did it, wouldn't be like in this region, we would do it closer to the Midland area anyway.
How's business?
Good.
Any other questions by the board?
No.
Questions?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Had a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, I'm opposed.
The ayes have it. Do I have another motion? To get that again? Yes. Again, okay. Do you have another motion?
Consider motion resolution 218-118. Installation of street lights on commercial, Brian O'Lacker and 72.
Second.
Had motion second. James?
Mayor and Commissioners, this issue was brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission at their November meeting, and these are their recommendations for streetlights in 4 different areas. First area would be, here is Highway 18 and Main Street, Ferguson Construction. What they're recommending is the placement of 5 different stoplights. The 150 series or the smaller residential type lights, they would be placed based on the recommendations of the staking crews from Lee County Electric. These are just the general locations. But on Avenue R and Commercial, you go a little bit further south, they would have another one. The stronger ones that are found along Main Street and Avenue D, the 310 series, there would be 3. This would really light up that curve and that particular intersection. The second location is at Commercial and Avenue D. Right now we currently have one 150 series located on the northwest corner. We're recommending, since this is a wide intersection that has a lot of traffic, that we go ahead and install at least 3 additional 150 series lights at a cost of about $300 per year. Over on the curve at 17th and Brian Urlacher, we're recommending that we install at least 4 of the 310 series to light up that curve and that intersection for County Road 99. And then the last intersection would be down at 17th and Gum. This is a very dark intersection, but we're recommending one 310 series light at a cost of $680 per year. But that being said, I'm sorry, not $680 a year. That is wrong, but this would cost the city about $1,800 a year to our utility bill.
No question, James. On
Sure.
the power lines to those, especially with the commercial street, and are they going to go overhead? Is it going to be underground?
It's going to be overhead, sir. Yes, sir.
We beg for something tall because we'll be ripping them down left and right.
Right.
So at least 23, if they can get something.
Are you talking about where on this particular intersection?
That intersection and the one at Ferguson. Because I don't know how they would string the cables. That would be my concern. Would be as they come through there. You know.
We'll definitely get with this.
Because I know my guys carry through those intersections.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, I beg for like 20 foot, 23, somewhere in that
Sure.
rate.
Okay.
So, and they may be able to come from different angles to feed the power to them, but that would be a concern of mine.
Yes, sir.
Definitely a long time overdue on that. Any questions by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do we have another motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2018-119, authorization of advertisement of an ordinance that will amend or it was in capital letters, or amend Title 2, Division 5, Chapter 2.84, Youth Board, and amend Chapter 2.9, Parks and Rec Board.
Second.
Got a motion second.
James. Mayor and Commissioners, during our discussion at the last City Commission meeting on the Youth Center Board Code update, it was mentioned to look at the feasibility of consolidating this board with the Parks and Recreation Board, since they do have overlapping types of responsibilities. So what we presented tonight is version A, which version A is the original Youth Board recommendation to amend the code, which establishes that board appointments to that body would begin on July 1st. Meetings would go from monthly to quarterly, and then also some changes to powers and duties, as well as setting the Youth Center Board, the Youth Advisory Board elections in March to kind of coincide with our municipal elections. And then also it removes the paying dues clause, or the inability to pay dues. Version B, what this would do is this would omit the Youth Center Board section from the municipal code. It would include language regarding the Parks and Recreation Division, which we'll discuss this a little bit further on down, but in our organizational plan that we discussed and approved in 2015, the Youth Center would fall under the Parks and Recreation Division. However, this would also make changes to the membership of the Parks and Recreation Board. Right now, we currently have 2 youth members, which those positions are very hard to fill and find individuals who are youth, between the ages of 15 and 20, who actually will have the time to show up at the meeting. So what this does is it removes one of those youth positions and changes it to an individual who resides within the city limits. So this is, let's see. What this resolution does tonight is it will authorize the advertisement of either version A or version B, whatever the City Commission would like to do, and then we would have final adoption actually in our meeting in December, the December 10th meeting.
Can you show version A one more time?
Sorry. Version A is what we submitted for discussion at the last meeting. This would change the board appointments to July 1st instead of what they currently are, which is just spread out. We also changes it from meeting every month to quarterly, and then changes the youth advisory board elections, and then of course removing the inability to pay dues language.
So version A would keep the board, version
Yes,
B
sir.
would eliminate the board.
Yes, sir. So, yes, sir. Version B would eliminate the youth center board and put the responsibility and the reporting and the advisory components of that board in the Parks and Recreation Board.
A couple of things, James, if you
Sure.
don't mind. Tell us about the supervisory roles, the personnel, the logistics involved in that, and also what your recommendation is, if you may.
The supervisory role?
Yes. As far as you plan on having somebody who's going to be in charge of the Parks and Rec Department, are they going to oversee the youth center board?
Correct, sir.
Or the youth center?
Yes, sir. Back in 2015, when we approved our budget, we approved that organizational plan, which identified the different sections and divisions as the city grew. The Parks and Recreation section or division would be composed of Parks and Recreation. It would be our youth center, senior center, library, as well as our cemetery. So that position would be filled out as the needs determined. And of course, we have language to where this would create this position in the municipal code. It doesn't mean that we would actually go forward with it. As far as my recommendation, to be honest, we have two bodies that are duplicating efforts. We have, and it kind of conflicts, I guess you would say, with the intent of that Parks and Recreation Board. The Youth Center Board, as far as I know, has been around since the Youth Center was established. However, with the plan and the direction that we set back in 2015, and then the eventual creation of that Parks and Recreation Board, we are duplicating duties. It would be my recommendation that, we would have the same representation from a Parks and Recreation Board, but version B makes more sense from just a streamlining and being efficient. Version A, to keep that, it would be nostalgic, I guess you would say. We could still do this, but version B would be a much more efficient means of carrying out the advisory capacities of our citizens.
Question? Well, I was gonna say, as y'all probably know, I'm chairman of that board, and I've had a lot of concern with the people that's on the youth board. I've, kind of talked with them, and we're still kind of looking at version A. And I understand you want to make it more efficient, and we meet probably, every 3 months or so, or whatever. But in my opinion, personally, this is coming from me and some of those people that's on the board, I would love to see the youth board stay intact and not be combined with the Parks and Recreation. I feel like the Parks and Recreation really doesn't have that much to do with the youth. And just think it ought to be kept separate. We've had it for many, many years. And a lot of people probably would probably say, well, what are we doing putting parks with the youth? I'd just like to see it stay as is.
James, you mentioned that the supervising personnel will be overseeing Parks and Rec and the youth center, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there would be a line under
Yes.
one supervisor. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. And that's where you say it makes more sense to do with version B, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right.
And that includes the cemetery also?
Correct.
Cemetery probably would fit more in line with the Parks and Recs rather than the youth. The youth's not gonna care about planting trees or mowing lawns or digging holes for a cemetery or nothing like that. Dead folks, come on, really? I'm just,
Somebody gotta pick it up.
I'm just putting it out there, but.
Young people, strong, go.
So, I've got one question. The person that's gonna be in charge, do you know who the person is gonna be in charge of all these departments?
No, sir, that has yet to be determined.
Would it be in-house, somebody here from the city?
We're an equal opportunity employer. We would have to go out for public, whether it would be somebody in-house, whether it be somebody from the outside, that's yet to be determined. That particular position you're referring to, that is actually our last action item that we have.
It's on our agenda the last time.
So would whoever get this position say like if it was in-house,
Mhm.
say somebody we already got, would you up their salary? Is that because they're gonna take all these positions, or be the head of these, like the cemetery and the parks and everything?
Yeah, well, good question, sir. It depends on if it is in-house, it depends on what they're making. In that particular packet, we do have what the average salary for somebody in that position for municipalities our size that they would make. But they would have increased responsibility. So with that increased responsibility, there would need to be, adequate compensation.
So right now, nobody's getting a salary on that?
We have individual directors for each individual department. This would be similar to the public works position, where they have the streets, solid waste, wastewater, and water, all reporting to one individual to reduce the span of control.
So who's gonna take your place? If everybody's going to report to this one person, what about you?
They report to him.
They actually report to me. Yes, sir.
That's what I'll make sure.
Yes, sir.
One question, Jay.
Sir.
Version A, so that just keeps the youth board separate, but the Parks and Recs will go ahead and absorb the cemetery and so forth, right, or no? Because you don't have that on Plan B, that's what I'm
Correct.
saying.
Correct.
So, that's what I'm saying, it's not in the language.
Right. Version A, it only affects the content that we presented to you at the last meeting. It doesn't change any of the composition or of the Parks and Recreation Board.
Okay, yeah, but Parks and Recs right now, but you're talking about the cemetery board.
Correct. Well, that would be under the Parks and Recreation Division, which is that last.
Is it already part of that current?
No,
board?
sir, it is currently not.
But you want to absorb that into that, right?
Yes, sir.
But on your language, it doesn't state that, is what I'm saying.
Correct.
So do we need to add the language to it?
That can be easily done. Yes, sir.
I'm just saying, Bernard wants version A, and that leave the youth center out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead and include, and then leave the other one, and I'm referring to Parks and Recs absorbing the other two, is what I'm
Sure.
I mean, that could be a C, version C is what I'm saying.
Correct. Yes, sir. What we could do is we can actually adopt version A. Then we could actually take pieces of version B, essentially eliminate this first bullet point, include the Parks and Recreation Division, and then change the makeup of our Parks and Recreation Board to eliminate the one youth member and replace it with another Lovington resident at large.
Because I think that'd be more favorable for Bernard is what I'm asking permission to go for.
Or we could add the cemetery option to version B.
Actually, Mayor Commissioners, we could actually with those changes, it does include, if you look at the actual ordinance. Your version B, it lists under 2.90090 duties, provide recommendations for programs and activities conducted by Parks and Recreation Division. Parks and Recreation Division includes cemetery, library, Parks and Recreation Department, Senior Citizen Center, theater, and youth center. So the language is in there.
Yes.
Okay, the language is in there.
Yes, sir.
B then, right, for version B.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we need to amend the actual motion to
Yes, sir.
include either version A or version B, correct?
Or if you want to incorporate the language changes with the omission of the first section of the Youth Center Board on version B, which would be a version C, and we can easily amend that resolution.
I'm just saying, I'll go back to Commissioner Bernard and seeing what he was suggesting, trying to, since that is not part of the.
Sure.
I really would like to, that and just go with version A, put the rest with, so the language is in there, and just keep that like it is. I have no problem with the rest of that.
So totally different question. So if you go with version A, basically there's no change to our, there's no changes roughly.
Correct, the board, the youth center board would still exist, it would just
If we
make,
go to version B and we could throw in the cemetery and everything else, and then we go to our next 121, where we're advertising for a employee, we have an increase to our budget, right?
there would be an increase to the budget.
For
How,
salary and,
correct, yes, sir. However, all we would be doing would be incorporating the language to allow us, whether it's this fiscal year, next fiscal year, to actually staff that position.
right.
It's not that just passing this does not mean that 100% we're going to fill it. It gives us the ability to.
Right, it gives us the ability, but it does, for whatever
It-
reason, next week somebody comes in and that's the person, it would cause an increase in
Yes, sir.
our budget. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm on the same page.
Any other questions about
I think I like Bernard for the way he's going. I'm wondering.
that? I've pretty
I'm a
much said,
Vision B fan, so there you go.
yeah. Bernard, BB.
So, I'll amend my motion for version B.
How about the cemetery board?
And throw that in there too. Throw that in there too.
Include the youth center,
Yeah, we're just gonna throw it all into
version, throw everything in there on.
throw it all in the washing machine.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Are you clear on that, Jake?
You're wanting to go with version B as written.
That's the
That's
motion.
what I heard.
Yeah, yeah, Commissioner Gandy made the motion, and Commissioner Campos seconded it earlier, so he amended it to version B to
Oh, okay.
include the
Okay.
cemetery and so forth.
Which is already included.
It's
It is already included, yes, sir.
Okay.
You got that, Anna? You look stressed there.
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
So we're basically taking A out of it, or you want to put them all in one basket?
It's all in one basket. Version B.
Does he have a
So
person? that's in charge
basically,
of
we're
that?
at the point of, from what I can tell, it's 2 against 2. So we just had to vote it out.
All right, let's do a roll call vote on version B. Anna?
Commissioner Butcher,
It's no for me.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez, Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
and Mayor Trujillo.
No.
All
You
right.
want to amend that, do we can go for another motion?
Make another motion.
If you want to make another motion,
Can they do that? Are they able to do that?
Yeah, we can make another motion. If you want to do the vote, version A, make a motion, include version A.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for version A to be separated.
Oh, you just go say
Well,
version A.
Well, version A. That'll,
no,
but you gotta state what you want it for.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, to be excluded from version B.
It's already
If
excluded.
that makes, I mean, it's excluded now. I understand, but I don't know if I'm putting it in the right words. Would like to just have it separate from B.
Okay.
That's common sense.
You just
We
want
don't need to
version
make
A.
it rocket science, that's it. And I'm sure,
he just wants to. keep it
Patrick,
separate.
correct me on what I need to say on that.
Well, I can't correct you. 'cause
Yeah,
you're-
that's what I'm saying.
I think what you're saying is, you're moving for version A,
Right.
correct?
Mhm.
You like that better than B. And the question then, in my mind, and maybe some others, is also, in that version A, what do you want to do with the cemetery issue?
In with the cemetery, as I stated earlier,
Okay.
would like to be included in version.
Okay. 'Cause I think that's clear to me, I think, is that.
Yeah, but I think it's already in the wording in version
Yeah.
B, where he would just go with version B but to not include the youth center.
Right.
It was
Right.
in there, it just didn't come out. Yes.
He said, you can go with version B to not include the youth center, and that would be pretty much it, because all the wording, all the language is already in there, but you just want to remove the youth center to where it stays the same.
Stays by itself.
I second
How is it?
Somebody read that back to me,
Can
just so I make.
can I summarize real quick?
Same surfboard here.
I think I understand. So,
I'm not gonna
we
read
want,
it again.
What the motion was is to incorporate these particular changes in version A, as well as the changes in version B, except for the elimination of the
There
youth
you
center
go.
board.
Exactly.
Okay, I thought that's where we were at.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, did you want to make that motion, Commissioner?
And I think the easy way to do it is just to say, so moved.
So moved.
All right.
It's a done deal.
Arthur, did you?
I second that.
Okay, and a roll call vote, Henry.
Yes, sir.
And thank y'all for
Commissioner-
that help.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Campos,
No.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
No.
and Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Okay, on to the next item. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for Resolution 2018-120, authorize the advertisement of an ordinance that will amend the housing incentive agreement between the city and M&L Development.
Second.
And motion is second. James?
Mayor and Commissioners, if you recall, back in May of 2017, we approved a housing incentive agreement between the city and M&L Development for 12 homes to be built in the Sunrise Edition, which is located right off of 7th Street, essentially Cottonwood, the Cottonwood area in Birch. So as you all are aware, we had the economic downturn. There were some other difficulties in securing an actual contractor to build out the subdivision. They have built out and are actually only one lot away from completely filling in the entire subdivision. However, the reimbursement agreement that we had, in which we reimbursed them $6,000 for offsite infrastructure for each completed home, which was $72,000, that agreement expired on June 27th. So really, they have completed the project. They have just fallen behind. We're recommending that we just adopt an ordinance that amends that agreement, since this is a public-private partnership, to allow us to go ahead and proceed with that reimbursement. You can actually see we did a kind of a historical just to show what our housing incentives have done, and also those individuals who are willing to invest in Lovington. But back in March of 2012, it was a vacant lot. Of course, this is Polk Street, this is 7th Street. You can see that in 2014, they had built out Aspen, and they already had all of these homes completed on Polk and Aspen. Then back in in February of 2017, you can see they've completed 2 additional cul-de-sacs, additional roads. Then we see in November of 2017, really only Birch is the one that is not as, Birch is not complete yet. And then actually, this was taken last week. You can see there's only one lot that does not have a structure standing on it right now. So whenever we look at it in phase 1, the city helped fund the completion of these for the offsite infrastructure. And that offsite infrastructure, when we say that, just to refresh everyone's memory, that is for the roadway, the water, and the sewer lines, everything off in the public right-of-way. You can see in phase 2, this was for some additional homes. However, the time did run out on that particular agreement, and the homes that weren't completed were folded over into phase 3. This particular home was not eligible for reimbursement because the language in the contract actually says that if you have to request any variances or anything, it makes it ineligible for reimbursement. And that particular home actually had an encroachment on the city's right-of-way that was granted, and so it didn't allow them to get reimbursement. This particular phase will help fund or help reimburse up to $6,000 per home, per completed home. And of course, these remaining 5 lots, they haven't received any reimbursement for. So you can see that because of the incentives, as discussed earlier, we've seen 41 completed homes from the time this project started. And I would stand for any questions.
Has it picked up any more?
I'm sorry, sir.
Has it picked up any more of the construction?
Yes, sir. We actually have been approached by several developers. The EDC has for not only single dwelling or single family dwellings, but also some multi-family, some apartments.
So these people that are doing this construction, they bought all these lots themselves,
Yes.
and they put the infrastructure, you know, the sewer line and everything, and we're gonna reimburse them for that, for the sewer.
Up to $6,000 per home.
Water line.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have another motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, resolutions 2018-120, authorize the advertisement of an ordinance that will amend a housing incentive agreement.
No, the bottom. Last one. Very last.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion, resolutions 2018-21, authorize the advertisement of an ordinance that will create a parks and recreation director.
121, George.
Yeah, 121, just want to say.
Second.
Had a motion second. James?
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, what this particular position would do is, if you recall back in 2015, we established the organizational chart and our plan that we have. And of course, our Parks and Recreation Division didn't exist, but it consolidates all of these departments that report to a division head, similar to the Public Works. This particular ordinance would allow us to create this by code just like the fire chief, city clerk, finance director, public works director in city code. This doesn't mean that we would actually go ahead and start hiring. This person would oversee the Parks and Recreation Division. They would do the planning, the budgeting. They would oversee the projects, operations, maintenance, all aspects, in order to make sure that things don't get left behind and overseen just because of a span of control issue. In addition, we would be able to do more community outreach and as far as public programs and coordination of all of those events. So, as I said, this would allow us to advertise the ordinance. I know that, looking revenue-wise, we are doing good, but because we are entering what they call a bear market with oil prices, I'm sure all of you have been keeping an eye on it. We're still hovering. However, right now, even with our surplus, we actually are looking at an estimated $700,000 in surplus GRT going into the general fund. However, like I said, this does not mean that we would hire this individual right away once the ordinance passes, because the key component in this particular draft is that, yes, this position would be hired by the city manager with the consent of the city commission. And what that means is that if we do want to go ahead and advertise for this position, we would, of course, get approval from the city commission to go forward with this, because it would take a budget amendment if it's not already included in, let's say, this particular fiscal year budget or even next year's budget. And then, of course, the candidates would be interviewed, and then the recommendation would be provided to the city commission. And that's all I have at this point.
Do we currently have someone in there as interim?
No, sir.
No one there?
This is different than Dennis Martin's position. We do have an interim Parks and Recreation supervisor, and that's Georgia Randa.
So this is, how many positions are we going to have this one person over?
How many positions, how many employees would report to them?
Not even say like, this person takes over the Parks and Recreation. This person, is it already here? The person is already here?
No, sir.
You just have to go out and look for one?
This would be a new position.
So are any one of our guys eligible?
There are, the job description is attached. There are certain requirements that they would have to meet. But if they do meet those requirements, they would be eligible for it. Yes, sir.
So this one person, tell me what he's gonna take care of. What departments?
What department?
Is he gonna take over any of the departments, or what's over, or just over the parks?
He would want, no, it would be the Parks and Recreation Department. It would be the Cemetery Department, the Senior Citizens Department, and then it would also be our Youth Center Department.
Go back to your chart.
Yes, sir, right there, and our library. So they would actually directly oversee these 5 different departments.
That's what I was trying
Okay.
to get to, instead of just
Yes, sir.
thinking they're gonna just do the parks.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm sorry. What? Yes, he or she. Yes.
So, we've already got, these are 5 departments, right?
Correct.
We've already got 5 people over these departments, don't we?
Yes.
We've got a department head over each one of these positions already.
Yes, sir.
So why do we need one to take care of all 5 positions, when we already got each one doing their duty?
Very similar. So very similar to why we adopted this and put our finance director over not just the finance department, but our utility billing and motor vehicle department. Span of control. We had 21 different departments reporting to one individual, and with your basic structure, a person can only effectively supervise 6 to 8 people directly. So having 21 individuals report to one person, that's why things would slip between the cracks. This actually lends towards more effective leadership. Yes, it does increase the budget, but as I said, this is not a guarantee. This just allows us, as we grow more as a community, this would allow us, when we all feel, or the commission feels it's appropriate, we can hire this position to oversee that.
They teach that in college, under management. I clearly remember that too. Always 7 was the magic number.
It's kind of like the public works director who's already over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 departments as well. The Parks and Rec director would be
It would be
basically
identical,
the same
yes, sir.
type of hierarchy. Correct.
Yes, sir.
It would be no different than the police. Because you have one guy, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to mess this up. You got your lieutenants, and then your sergeants.
Right.
And so you've got all your tiers there, and that's basically what this is.
But it's only one department. It's a police department. This is gonna give five
It's no,
departments.
it's basically the same thing.
But they're
Because
all-
you have, in your departments, you have, break those down for me, you, different
I have
divisions.
our communications division, we have our investigations division, and patrol division. Then we have our school resource, and then we have
So
canine.
You're
We
not
have
over
five-
five- you're
We
not
have
over
5
five
different.
departments.
We have 5 different divisions within the police department, but I oversee all of them. But I have my lieutenants and the sergeants that take care of those other ones.
So you don't have anything to do with the fire department?
No, that's just
Why don't you?
because that's totally different.
That'd be,
That'd be overreaching my boundaries.
And expertise.
James, on this position, would the supervisor oversee the budgeting of the 5, or of all the departments?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very similar to what Wyatt does. Is you have the department heads who actually they're the boots on the ground, but you have actual Wyatt who is overseeing making sure that projects get done. You also have the budget; they stay within budget. They also help prepare the budget. Those are those duties.
Any other questions by the board? Roll call vote, Anna?
Commissioner Gandy?
Yes.
Commissioner Campos?
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez? And Mayor Trujillo?
Yes. Okay. Do you have a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion pursuant to section 10-15-1 New Mexico State annotated 1978 subsection H8 regarding the purchase, acquisition, or disposition of real property or water rights, possible sale of commercial land, subsection H-2 regarding limited personnel matters.
Roll call vote, is there? Second, somebody said a second. Yeah.
Commissioner Butcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez, Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
and Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. We are in closed session.
Mr. Mayor, to back into regular session. The matters discussed in the closed session were limited only to those specified in the motion for closure and that no action was taken.
Second.
Motion second, roll call.
Commissioner Sanchez? Commissioner Gandy?
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell?
Aye.
Commissioner Butcher?
Aye.
And Mayor Trujillo?
Aye. Do I have a motion?
Look to make a motion for closure.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.